What's going on, everyone? Welcome to a Tuesday edition of Back Your Play. Rich Quinones here. As always, follow me on social media at Rich Q on Q, the YouTube channel, Rich Q on Q. Tomorrow, we'll cut a new episode of 27 in Q with number 27, Brandon Jacobs. So definitely appreciate everyone keeping us locked in. A little NBA tonight. It's great to catch up with my man, Jonathan Marshall, my NBA insider for God knows how many years, enjoying the nice warm weather that is the Boston area. What's going on, Jonathan? How you
What's
doing?
up, Q? Long time no hear. How's it going?
Everything is going well, man. Everything is going well. And I know it's funny because you get to this point, right? With the football season, we're kind of having that late run into the playoffs. And hey, the Giants might figure out a way to get in. We don't know. But well, hold on a second. It covers the fact that the Knicks still stink. Right. I mean, so I have to, come on, man. We can't all be, well, not that you're a Pats fan, but we can't be worrying about the Patriots or the Boston Celtics, who look like they're going to win like 60 something odd games this season. You know what? Let's start with Boston right now. Put up 140 the other night. I think they won 16 of 18. They're off to an unbelievable start. And I always, listen, we talked about this over the last several years with the radio show. It's always about the guard play, right? Guard heavy play in the NBA. Brown, Tatum, but then you look at the triple-double from Smart, the reigning defensive player of the year. I mean, they're getting production all over the place. Talk to me a little bit about this start from Boston, and is it sustainable?
Well, first off, I mean, the elephant in the room was the coach situation, right? Ime Udoka.
Yes.
For 1 year, how will this impact that locker room? How will Joe Mazzulla transition into this interim head coach's position? And so I think first and foremost, you got to applaud these guys for taking on that leadership, like Jason Tatum's and Jaylen Brown and Marcus Smart. I think much of the onus was on those guys in particular who have been through the battles, even though they're still in their mid, they're still pretty young guys, but they've been through the playoff wars, right? They've been through the early exits, the Eastern Conference Finals and the finals last year. And so for them to have that maturity and take on that leadership this season, I think we're seeing that. And we're seeing that with Jason Tatum, especially one of the leading MVP candidates. And so I think it is sustainable. I mean, you got Jason Tatum really coming into his own, looking like an MVP candidate. Jaylen Brown worked on his handle, couldn't handle the ball at all last year during the playoffs. And so the handle was more tighter. He's more confident attacking the basket. Marcus Smart is still being Marcus Smart, doing what he does, but also having Malcolm Brogdon, an extra ball handler to take off the ball handling responsibilities from Tatum and Jaylen Brown. Derek White, year 2 in this Boston Celtics system. He looks more comfortable. And their bench, one of the best benches in the league. Malcolm Brogdon is coming off the bench. He's a starting point guard in the NBA, but he's their sixth man. Sam Hauser, Peyton Pritchard, Luke Cornett, who's had to step in. And Rob Williams hasn't even played yet. And people need to remember Rob Williams, one of the better defenders in this league, a rim protector, a guy that can pick and roll and attack to the basket. Like when they get him back, that adds a whole nother dimension to their defense and to their offense. And so this is definitely going to be sustainable.
Yeah, they had the Heat tomorrow coming into TD. He come in 10 and 11, as we mentioned. Boston 17-4. I'm sure that line is going to probably close about 7-8. By the way, our NBA talk and picks and predictions from our good friends at Spooky Express. Check them out online, spookyexpress.com. Check out some of the great promos from their affiliates as well. So you look at Boston, we know what Milwaukee is doing, can do, right? We know that Boston 17-4, Milwaukee 14-5. We know Giannis, we know about the depth. But then you kind of round out the Eastern Conference, the Cavs, Indiana. Philly finally gets back Embiid, and we saw what he put up the other night. Then you have Toronto. We know Boston and Milwaukee, right? So I want to get to the Cavs in Indiana for a second, because as I mentioned, Boston keeping up this pace, but Indiana and Cleveland, right? The sustainability. I look at the Cavs and I think they're a sneaky good team, and everyone talks about Mitchell. And then we talk about Mobley. Can we give a little love to Darius Garland? I mean, this kid's averaging about 22, 23. He's probably going to be an all-star. So out of those teams, talk a little bit about the Cavs first, and then we'll go to Indiana.
I love the Cavs, Q. Obviously, Donovan Mitchell's taking all the headlines, but Darius Garland, I mean, he's one of the most improved guys last year, but he's proven me wrong coming out of college. I mean, he didn't play much because of injury at Vanderbilt, but what he's done, I mean, he's lethal with that jump shot. Just as a point guard, just to have that ability to light it up from beyond the 3-point range. That just opens things up even more so for guys like Donovan Mitchell. And then you got to deal with Evan Mobley and Jared Allen, right? Like, how many front courts can you say in the league offer what they offer athletically and defensively and even offensively, just, athletic presence at the rim. And so Karis LeVert, Ricky Rubio hasn't even played yet. I think he's hurt, right? And so Kevin Love is hurt, but once they get him back, another veteran presence, Carl. I mean, they have some guys off the bench that can produce as well, but I think their starting five is one of the more talented starting fives in the NBA, and that backcourt is so lethal.
I agree 100%. They're getting 5 tomorrow against the Sixers, actually 4.5. It'll probably close around 4. And then you mentioned, the depth. We look at a team like Indiana and quietly is just kind of, going along. I mean, look, last night we can get into what I think is a debacle by the Lakers. We'll get into those in a couple moments. I mean, you get a kid that no one's ever heard of before, friggin' hit a 3, heard around the world. They're down 17 in the fourth. They beat the Lakers 116-115. But where are you right now with Indiana?
I like Indiana. Tyrese Halliburton, one of my favorite, point guards in the league. They have my favorite rookie, Benedict Mathurin. He's actually on my fantasy team. That smart pickup by me, but
good plug.
Benedict Mathurin is a talented guy off the bench for those guys. Miles Turner, Buddy Hield. I like them. I think if you have to play them in the first round, it's going to be tough. It's not going to be an easy out. But you're dealing with a team with a lot of guys that don't have playoff experience, right? And that's important. We're talking about the Bostons and Milwaukee's. Cleveland had a taste of that playoff atmosphere last year, right? Playing the Nets. And so I think in the playing round, but they had some sort of experience in that type of atmosphere, right? And so Indiana, the only question is, how will those young guys, when you talk about sustainability, when it comes to that playoff push, how will they handle that next stretch? Because that's important. It's a whole different ball game, but the talent's there, but the experience is not there yet.
Your 76ers, I mean, they are feast or famine. They're hit or miss. I mean, look, this is what happens, right? Embiid's injury history. The big man always misses some games, but then all of a sudden you got to deal with Harden, and everyone said, yeah, he came in shape, but you're missing there. And then Maxey, then you got role players, Milton hits for 25 the other night. I mean, as critical as I've been when it comes to the head coach, I have to give him credit where credit is due, because this is like a mass unit right now. It's almost like we were talking about the big three in with Brooklyn, get them on the floor at the same time and engage Kyrie, Kevin Durant, and Simmons. I just feel as though that window for the Sixers, that championship window, has shut.
It's cracked. It's cracked open, right? I would not totally shut, but it's cracked open, Q.
No, it's shut like when you get that Boston cold breeze, the air coming in, and you shut the window. Come on, man.
It's almost shut. I will say that. It's not looking good. It's not looking good at all. And it all hinges on Joel Embiid, right? Yeah. As great as he's played, you always know in the back of your mind at any given moment, he hits that floor, it's over, right? And you just don't know if he'll be available. I don't know if he'll be available the next game. You just don't. There's always something with his body. His body isn't going to last long in this league. And when it comes to the Sixers, their ceiling, how far they can go, hinges upon Joel Embiid's health. We can talk about James Harden. We can talk about Tyrese Maxey, Tobias Harris, and all these guys. But if Joel Embiid's not ready and healthy and ready to play in the playoffs, you're not going anywhere. And so it hinges upon Joel Embiid. And so I think after this year, the Sixers are going to have some conversations. Like, something has to be had. If you don't make that, at least make an Eastern Conference Finals run, you got to make some hard decisions.
Okay, 2 things. This is his 7th year in the league. It feels like he's been in the league for a decade, right? And he still can take over games. We just saw it the other night. He can be as dominant as we've seen. But you said, well, you got to go out and get some other player. How many times over the years have we had this conversation? What was the point of bringing in James Harden?
Right.
And look at some of these contracts, whether it's Maxey or Tobias's contract, they never actually get that help they need off the bench. And then you have it seems every year at some point during the season, a coach on the hot seat in Doc Rivers.
Right. Yeah. I look at this year's roster. I mean, when you make that move for Harden, you make these moves, you get a PJ Tucker who has, I don't know, we've probably scored as much as him this season, right?
Yeah, he's just on the roster.
It's bad. It's bad. And so obviously you hire a guy like Doc Rivers, the goal is championship or bust. And how many times do we make, do we see these guys make to that second round level? And you know what's coming. Like, you know what's coming. Second round has been their ceiling. It's been the ceiling. And so it's been kind of disappointing to see how this team has started. There's some hope with how the Shake Miltons, the Anthony Meltons, Tobias Harris, how they've played while the main guys have been out. But how will that transition when Harden and Maxey gets back? I'm not jumping on it fully just yet. Because you still don't know how will Shake Milton, will he get the same amount of minutes? Will the Anthony Melton have the same type of freedom to play? So guys play differently when they know they're not going to sit, right? When you know, like, okay, Harden's not here, Maxey's not here,
Of course.
just play my game. So
There's what you need to do.
Yeah,
but
we're seeing that from
you
Shake.
mentioned two players. You mentioned, not to cut you off, two players averaging 22 and 29 minutes respectively. So that tells you that they're thin, right? I mean, without James Harden, without Maxey, you're losing about 40 something odd points, and Embiid scoring 32, 33, but you can't ask him to play both ends of the floor. And what happens, right? We start to look at these contracts, and I hate to keep going back to a player like Tobias Harris, but come on, man. You got to give me more than 15, 16, 12, 13 a night. I'm not asking for 35, but can you consistently give me 20 to 22?
If Tobias, look, we judge Tobias because of the contract, right? That's fair, right? They gave you this money, so we're expecting you to perform in a way. It's not because we think that any person who watches the NBA, we don't think Tobias is a max contract player. But since you're given his contract, the expectation has risen. If Tobias lived up to that contract, the Sixers wouldn't even be having these conversations. If he lived up to that contract, the situation would be much better, much better. Embiid's doing his job. Maxey is doing his job. You know, if Tobias is living up to that contract, we're having a whole different conversation with this team.
You got the two teams in the borough. You got the Knicks and the Nets. And again, couple minutes with Jonathan Marshall, Tuesday edition of Back Your Play. Rich Quinones here. Follow me on Twitter at RichQonQ. Jonathan as well at John_Marshall3. Let's start with the Knicks. I mean, it's great that they can put up some of these points, but it's never consistent. They're, again, tough luck, losing team at times. You want Randall to be that all-star from a couple of years ago. It's not going to happen. He has his moment. You got Barrett. You got Brunson. I mean, I thought going into the season, they can be that maybe on the outside looking in fringe 40, 41 wins. But now I'm starting to see this team for what it really is. They lack a really solid, consistent perimeter shooter. Their defense is lapsed at times, and you don't know what Randall's going to show up. And I actually think the message from the head coach has fallen on deaf ears.
Yeah. I mean, I look at the roster. It's a group of talented guys, but
no doubt.
Is there a real number one guy? You look at the Bostons, Milwaukee, Philly, the top teams, they have that guy. Jalen Brunson obviously was the big offseason addition, but is he a guy that you want to rely on?
No.
For this franchise? Julius Randle, I think there's a ceiling with him. RJ Barrett, nice young player. So there's a collection of nice players on this. Like, these aren't bad. Like, these are really good players, but I think the roster makeup, like who is that guy that you're relying on? Is it Julius Randle or is it Jalen Brunson? And so far, I've seen a lot from Jalen Brunson. He's been a great pickup, but that's just not enough to compete with the Eastern Conference teams that we've talked about already. It's just not enough just on a talent level. And just on a hierarchy level, like Jalen Brunson and Julius Randle, they have to play up.
Yeah.
Like on any other team, on Boston or Milwaukee, there may be the number 2 and number 3 guys, but because they're on this roster, they're 1 and 2. And it's just not going to work.
Yeah, and the Quickleys of the world, and listen, the Toppins. I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be, I'm not trying to slight these guys, but it looks like it's a draft pick that's just not panning out. I mean, that's when you look at some of these other guys, right, that and have gone top 3, top 4, top 5 that have come into the league over the years and have made that impact. I get it. It is what it is. And then you've got the Nets, and listen, I like the head coach. And the whole Kyrie situation, the bottom line is when he's on the floor, Simmons is healthy, Durant is healthy and engaged, there's no reason that they should not be able to make a deep run in the playoffs. Here's the problem. I watched enough of them this year where I'm like, they just don't give a shit. Like, defensively, they're horrible. It's like YMCA ball. You get back on D when you want to get back up on D. And you can't do that when you're going against the Milwaukees, even the Phillies at full strength, the Boston Celtics with their guard play come playoff time. Like, you got to get your fannies back.
Yeah. I love Jack Vaughn as a coach. I said it, I feel like he should have got the opportunity over Steve Nash, but he's getting his opportunity now. I think we saw all we needed to see when they lost to the Sixers shorthanded.
An
To me,
undermanned Sixer squad, by the way.
That right there was everything you needed to know about the Nets. They had a
No
chance.
heart.
Ben Simmons is back in Philly. What better way than to just win a game?
I don't want
You had a chance to send a message, and they lost flat out.
Yeah.
They got outplayed. And that tells you all you need to know about these Brooklyn Nets. I didn't buy them when they got swept last year by Boston. When I saw them get swept, I said, this team isn't for real. They're not serious. Kevin Durant doesn't want to be there. Kyrie Irving doesn't want to play ball half the time. And Ben Simmons, that's a whole nother conversation. That's a whole nother show, right? And so when those are your three guys, when it's
Right.
it's just fickle. It's too fickle. I can't trust it. And so right now they're trying to just make a play-in game, right?
which is horrible to think about it. And they're laying 5.5 against the Wizards, but I would actually take the Washington Wizards because I've watched them. I know what they're bringing to the table. I like Beal, and I don't trust the Nets. I mean, I think this is a team of selfish players. And you're right. You had the issue with Kyrie. You got Ben Simmons that's not been consistent, always banged up. Here's your chance to go and shove it right back in Philly. And when you do, you still crawl in a rock. And you have Durant that is so passive aggressive. He's at the point now where it's like, get him out of Brooklyn.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know how you would make that fly. I don't know the best fit for him, but for the talent on paper, like the Dallas Cowboys, right? On paper, there's no reason why this team should not be right there with Milwaukee and the Boston Celtics in the Eastern Conference.
It's mind-boggling. There's no accountability. Even during the Steve Nash, I mean, that was doomed from the start when Kyrie said, we don't even need a head coach. Like that just sets the tone right there.
Agreed.
That just sets the tone. Like, what do you like? Are you kidding me? I've never heard a professional athlete say that before in my life. So that just sets the tone right there. And so there's no accountability. I don't know where the leadership is coming from outside of the coaching staff. Like, where is the on-court leadership? I just don't see it. And like you said, this team isn't trustworthy. The talent's there, but there's no cohesion. It just seems like a bunch of individuals just trying to just do their own thing. We know Kevin Durant's a great talent. We know Kyrie Irving's a great talent. We know Ben Simmons, when he's locked in and ready to go, he can do some great things on the court. But can you trust that on a nightly basis?
No, you can't. You can't. I mean, they got Washington, Toronto. They're going to get waxed by Boston. Charlotte's a bad team. Yeah. Atlanta, Indiana, Washington, Toronto. I mean, they might be staring down the barrel right now. What are they? How many wins they have? They are
11-11.
11-11. They're a 500 team. Like, you don't want to get to 5, 6, 7 games below 500 right around the holidays, because that's when you start to gauge some of these teams. I mean, I actually might lean them over that stretch. And then you got the Western Conference. So let's start with the Lakers, man, because this is an argument I have with Brandon all the time, man. When we start talking basketball, he brings up the Lakers and Westbrook and LeBron. And come on, man. It reminds me of that Lakers squad many years ago that decided, hey, Karl Malone, hey, Gary Payton, let's try to make one more run at this thing. And you watch LeBron, right? He almost looks around as saying, I'm too old for like, it's like Danny Glover and Lethal Weapon. I'm too old for this shit. Like I can't put up 35 and play 38 minutes a night.
He's been in the league since 2003. It's 20.
That's
it's about
crazy.
About to be 2023 now. Let's let that sit, right? At a certain point, it's going to catch up. No matter how great. LeBron's still in great physical shape, right? Like, he can go to the local gym and dominate, drop 100, right? He can still do that, but on an NBA level, it's going to catch up. So we're starting to see those nagging injuries. He's sitting out more games, right? That never used to be the case. So it's starting to build up. Father Time is always going to catch up. It may be delayed for some, but it's going to catch up eventually. And so LeBron is at a point now where I think he's done all that he can do. He knows the situation isn't ideal. I think the Lakers were betting on Anthony Davis taking on that leadership, taking on that number one role. And if you know anything about Anthony Davis, first of all, he's fragile. He's not going to be around. He's sort of like Joel Embiid, right? And number two, that's just not his personality. He's never been that. He was a talented guy in New Orleans. He was the top guy because it was the Pelicans. Like that was he was the franchise. But if you really watched him, he really never took on that full mantle. He never really, that's not his personality. And so I think the Lakers were hedging their bets on AD taking over, and that just hasn't been the case. And this roster's flawed, right? That's just what it is. It's a flawed roster.
Exactly. I mean, you've got, too many chefs, but not enough pots in the kitchen. I mean, we go back and forth. We talk about Westbrook. I mean, look, Westbrook is who he is, but I never thought it was going to be a good fit. Right. It's just the personalities are just, I don't know, man. It's a good thing they got that title a couple years ago in the bubble, man, because I'm telling you, people would have found a way to look at LeBron and discredit the legacy, which is utterly ridiculous, right? It's like me turning around talking about Michael Jordan when he was with the Wizards, or Washington. But yeah, they're a mess. I mean, that's a team I actually took their under for their win total prior to the season because I just had a feeling they were going to be a bad team. I'm looking at some of these teams in the Western Conference too, and as much as I want to have belief in some of these teams, I can't, right? I mean, we know about Phoenix, we know about Denver. Your squad, the Grizz, man, John. Then you got Portland that had that great start to the season. Yeah. Portland had that great start. Now all of a sudden, they come right back down to earth, man, which is absolutely crazy when you think about it. They've dropped 5 of 6. They had the loss to the Nets, and they're 3.5-point favorites over the Clippers. They're 2-3 ATS in their last 5. What's going on with those two teams right now? The Clippers dealing with some injuries. We know that, but what about Portland?
Yeah, Portland is interesting. I didn't expect much from this team. Obviously, Dame is back, but Anthony Simons, unproven, great talent, great young player. I love his game, but unproven. Jeremy Grant, young player, but he's bounced around a few times in this league. So I really didn't expect too much from them. And I think we're seeing it with Portland. We're seeing it with Utah. Utah's what? In the 9th spot now. San Antonio started off strong. They're close to the bottom of the West now. So it's like eventually things will settle. Let's just be patient. These teams that are sort of shocking the league and overachieving at a certain point, it's like, okay, things will settle.
Like the Kings.
Like the Kings, right? So I think what we're seeing with Portland is they're exactly who they should be at this point, right? They're a couple games over 500. I think they're not a horrible team, but I don't think anybody expects them to compete with the Denvers, the Phoenix of the world, even the Grizzlies or the Pelicans of the world, right? And so I still believe in Golden State. Like, I think I'm still holding out hope. I think that they have a push. I feel like there's another level that they can reach this year. I still believe.
Golden State for a second. I hear you, but how do you explain how this team you've got Hall of Famers on the squad, you've got championship moxie medal, but yet they stink on the road? I mean, they finally got 2 wins. It was them, Detroit, I think Orlando, the Lakers. They were all kind of clumped for a team that were winless on the road. How do you explain that?
It's still mind-boggling. This is the same team that won the championship, right? This is
2-9 on the road.
This is the same unit. I think the expectation was that Jordan Poole would take another level. Jonathan Kuminga would, Moses Moody, James Wiseman he's in the G League now. So I think that plays a part as well. And we don't know what's going on in that locker room. The Draymond Green, Jordan Poole situation, maybe that's had an impact, but I don't know. I still believe come playoff time, that experience, that talent, Steph Curry, the way he's been playing, I still would love to see them make that run. I still would put money on it. I would. I really would. I mean, look at the Western Conference.
Yeah.
I don't trust Phoenix in the playoffs. We've seen this from Phoenix. Like, they've won in the regular season, right? But at a certain point, Chris Paul,
he's getting older and injured.
Devin Booker in the playoffs, DeAndre Ayton in the playoffs.
Yeah.
We saw what Luka and Dallas did to them last year. Luka came into Phoenix and said, this is my game, so just stay home. That's what Luka did. So Denver, can they stay healthy? Jamal Murray's coming back from an injury. Michael Porter, his injury issues, right? New Orleans, can Zion stay healthy? I think the Western Conference is still it's for the taking for Golden State still. It really is.
Listen, the NBA season is a long season. You mentioned some of these teams, right? The same thing with the Clippers and Kawhi. I mean, imagine if he would have stayed in Toronto. I know a couple players have come out and said they would have won, multiple titles, but the narrative changes, right? If that ball doesn't bounce a certain way against the Sixers, who knows? Kevin Durant, what was it, 2 seasons ago in the playoffs? If his foot isn't a shoelace, an old school Brooklyn fat lace, right on the line, who knows? So the narrative, right? I can't trust Golden State right now until they start winning some of these games on the road. Now, mind you, it's late November. We're bleeding into the holidays. So I think I get the sense though in the Eastern Conference, it is Milwaukee or Boston, man. I just think,
Yeah.
pound for pound, I don't see teams in the Eastern Conference that can match up with those two respectively.
They have the stars, right?
Yeah.
They're well coached.
Yep.
And they have the depth, and they got guys who know their roles, and they have an identity, and they're missing guys that are very important, right? Boston with Rob Williams and Chris Middleton with Milwaukee, two very important pieces, and they haven't skipped a beat. And so I think in the East is Boston, Milwaukee, and then it's the rest. Cleveland's right there, but to me, it's Boston, Milwaukee, and then the rest of the field, honestly.
Light night. Let me give you some plays for tomorrow. Atlanta laying 5.5 against the Magic. The Magic have had a difficult time this season. We kind of know that. Although I like watching that rookie, man.
Paulo's nice.
I like watching that kid. I mean, for a top overall draft pick,
Yeah.
I mean, I think the knock on him to some people was he's going to be soft, but he's kind of acclimated to the NBA game already. But Atlanta's laying 5.5. You like the Hawks in that spot?
Yeah, I got to get Orlando. I mean, I got to give Atlanta over Orlando, even though, you like the rookie and Bol too. He's coming around too.
Yeah.
But I got to give it to the Hawks. Trae Young, DeJounte Murray. That was a great pickup. So Atlanta.
76ers laying 4 against Cleveland. And again, it's always, incumbent upon Embiid swings that line. So I look at guys like Durant, Giannis, LeBron back in the day to an extent, Curry, Embiid. Those are like the quarterbacks where if they're out, man, the line swings so many points, but we're going on the premises that he's healthy. They go on the road against Cleveland.
That's a tough one for Philly. I think without Maxey, I would lean toward the Cavs.
Yeah.
I would lean toward the Cavs.
I definitely think they're going to cover that game. They can win it outright. And then you have the Nets laying 5.5 against Washington. I already told you, I don't trust. That's too many points. Yeah. I can see a backdoor cover from Washington. I can see Washington winning this game outright. I just don't like the makeup of the Nets. That's the problem.
Washington's a much better team. Your boy Porzingis is playing better.
Played well the other night, right?
Yeah, Kyle Kuzma has been playing better. That's a tough one. I mean, Brooklyn's home, so that will give me, a little more confidence in that. But
Simmons is out, by the way. Simmons is out. No surprise. Yeah, he's ruled out with knee soreness.
Okay. Wow. That's a tricky one. Washington could pull that one out, actually. They actually could.
And I'd have to ask you, I'd be remiss, but the Bucks are laying 6 against the Knicks.
Milwaukee all day.
Yeah.
I don't got to think about it.
Does it seem this year, the first 20-something odd games, there's a substantial amount of scoring?
It does seem that way. I think, Boston put up crazy points. Washington put up crazy points the other night. I'm just like, what is happening here?
The Thunder have scored some points.
Yeah. A lot of great individual performances too. SGA for the Thunder, like just, Siakam before he got hurt was putting up some big numbers. Porzingis, had a crazy night. So a lot of great individual performances this season for sure.
What, before I let you get out of here, what were your whole thoughts on how the Nets handled the Kyrie situation? Kyrie's, his thought with the tweet and everything, and then subsequently pretty much doubling down on everything. I am shocked that he's playing. When the Nets kind of set those rules, I talked about it on the other pod, and I said they're probably setting these rules because they don't think he's going to do A, B, C, D, E, and there's your out. We can somehow just cut our losses, get out of his contract, eat the money, whatever. But what was your whole take with that?
Obviously just another one of Kyrie's situations, right? You just never know. Each day is always something with him, right? My thing is, I would have rather it been handled in-house just keep it within that team. Don't let it get too out exposed. And if Kyrie did in fact do the things that he was supposed to, then let the media know, okay, Kyrie did everything that he was supposed to do. We laid out some things for him to do, and he was able to do them. But I think it was just a mess by letting everything get out there. It was just a mess. And the president, and just was it Joe Tsai, I believe. There were some tweets out there. It got messy. And I think there's definitely some friction between Kyrie and the front office. And this is just, to me, the final chapter in that relationship, honestly. And for me, it's like Kyrie's a distraction. Like, I think it came down for the Nets. We want to win, and Kyrie gives us the best opportunity to win.
No doubt.
That's what it came down to them, So if they really wanted to keep things sort of at ease and not too much of a distraction, and really sort of distance themselves, you handle it in-house, and you figure out something. I mean, I don't know the trade market for Kyrie right now, but I think the best solution for the Nets would have been to say, okay, Kyrie, do you want to play for us anymore or not? Do you? And if you do, these are the things that have to happen, and then we can go forward. But if there was some hesitation from Kyrie, then say, okay, let's just start the process of like seeing what we can do to figure
But
this
to your
out.
point, you also know, right, at the end of the day, it is a business and it's all about wins and losses. So let's make a couple concessions here and there, because we know when you're on the floor, we're a much better team.
Exactly. It comes down to winning. The Nets say, okay, look, we're reeling right now. KD is out here doing whatever he can do to keep us afloat. We need Kyrie at the end of the day. Like, we may not want to have him here. I guarantee you the front office, they don't want to deal with that headache. They just don't. But he's talented, and he gives them an opportunity to win games.
But that's then basically a player that has a franchise by the balls, because you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. So, like, to your point, to kind of wrap it up to where we started, can you trust a player like that? Right? It's that guy that you've worked with, or whoever the person is. We've all had that person where when they want to work, they're going to work. But when they don't, they ate and skate, they come in late, they leave early, it's not a foxhole guy. The talent's there. It's undeniable. Right. But I bet you somewhere, truth serum, Kevin Durant's like, I got to deal with this knucklehead, and I got to deal with Soft Simmons. Like, get me the hell out of here.
Yeah. The Nets, they've made their bed, unfortunately, right? Like,
Agree.
You know what you're getting from Kyrie and Ben Simmons. You know what comes with that.
Yeah.
This is what they signed up for, right? And so as a person looking from the outside looking in, it's like, you know the character of this person, you know who they've shown themselves to be, and you still went forward. There's red flags everywhere, right? Like, do not go forward, but you still proceed. And so you can't be surprised when things like this happen. And so at this point, the Nets are like, all right, we just got to ride it out. And that's what they have no other choice. They just have to. For better or for worse, they're stuck with them right now.
Yeah, no, I wholeheartedly agree. All right, do you want to wax poetic about your Eagles?
Listen, Q. I think the national media and even some of the fans, there's a little bit of hate toward the Eagles this season. I don't know why. I really don't know.
Really?
Why. I think these last couple of weeks, people feel like there's a little bit of weakness with this. I've seen a lot of talk about the Cowboys, and I really don't like that. I don't know where that's coming from.
I'll say this. Obviously, I'm happy when they lose. I mean, come on, we already know that, right? Everyone knows you cut me open, it bleeds blue. And I thought Washington was going to give them a fight. But they're down 10 on the road against Indiana. They win that game. Indianapolis, I'm sorry. In Indy, they win that game. And I think the mark of a good team is a team that overcomes adversity. But the mark of great teams are the ones where you're just going along and all of a sudden you score, the team you're playing against comes right down the field and they score, and then you double them up and you score. Like, to me, that's what the Eagles can do, right? Every time I'm throwing my best punch and combination and I'm moving around, they're going to jab me to death. They're going to peck from the outside. And Hurts is a very good quarterback because he's got these traits that you don't find every Sunday, man. He's a gamer. He's tough.
Yeah.
His decision-making has been better. And these guys are buying in, man. And it's amazing. Like, hey, memo to Green Bay, stop allowing this frigging kid to scramble to his right, because every time he does it, but you're running for $150, you're passing for $150. They can run the ball. They've got weapons. I know Brown was a little nicked up. They've got outside help. The line is there. My only negative with the Eagles is that sometimes they're a slow starting team, which we've seen that in the past, and you can run on them, man. But other than that, and I'm not fine to the friggin' head coach. He just annoys the hell out of me, but that's a story for another day. You got to give them their credit. 10-1. I mean, they're going to get home field advantage. Most likely you win one game and you're hosting the NFC Championship.
10-1 is 10-1. Like
you are what your record is.
But it's crazy. It's a gift and a curse, right? If you excel to a certain extent, people are going to try to find, oh, they can't be this good. There has to be something wrong. These past couple of weeks, you mentioned the running game. That gives me concern. But come playoff time, that running game, that O-line, they're going to wear those defenses out.
Yeah,
we saw that against Green Bay, and so I think that offense that, Jalen Hurts has that thing rolling. That O-line, one of the best O-lines, if not the best in the league. I love the weapons that they have surrounding him with. That's still a talented defense, though. That's a talented D-line. The secondary is talented. They just have to get it together. But if the defense can shore up some things, I would say San Francisco gives me pause, but then they have Jimmy Garoppolo at quarterback. I can't trust that.
Yeah, I mean, I was just thinking San Fran too, and I'm a Jimmy G fan, but now you're adding the element of McCaffrey. I know they just lost Mitchell as well, but they got a good tight end. They got a good defense on paper when healthy. I'm not going to fold the tent up just yet on the Dallas Cowboys. I'm not, because they've shown me some toughness this year, man. They have. But I think, Minnesota, I get crushed because I still back Minnesota and Captain Kirk. But again, it's just, I mean, Hurts is a really good quarterback. And I go back to a couple of years ago when they drafted him and everyone's like, oh, what'd you sign? Why'd you draft? There's a reason they drafted that kid.
Yeah.
Like, it's Monday morning quarterbacking, but obviously they never really had 110% full belief that Carson Wentz was going to revert back to the Carson Wentz before he tore up his knee against the Rams. And let the record show, he hasn't. He's done in Washington. He couldn't win a game against Jacksonville and Indy last year. And now he just lost his job to Heineke.
I mean, what Jalen Hurts has done, the improvements over the last, it's been a gradual growth, and we're seeing it. He's so comfortable, at that position right now. And so the NFC is not going to be easy. Dallas is playing better. Tony Pollard is an amazing weapon that they have found now. But I still don't trust Dallas. I still feel like they're bound to just flop and fold. There's just bound something is going to happen. I just trust it. I've seen it enough, so San Francisco, Minnesota, I respect them. Justin Jefferson is a problem. But pound for pound, not too many teams that I've seen that are better than the Eagles. That's not even being biased. They're just a tough team.
It is amazing though, because I can tell we fall back in a groove like Walt and Clyde. I mean, you just totally dismissed these guys right here. I mean, that's
it's cute what the Giants are doing this year. It really is.
Listen, it's smoke and mirrors, man. All I wanted is, how pathetic is this? Just get me meaningful football up until Halloween, and they have. But now the injuries, no weapons. Saquon, I think, is hurt. You lose some secondary guys. But if you told me after 11, 12 games that the New York Giants would be 7-4, I would have signed up for it in a heartbeat, because I've had horrible losing seasons.
I like the head coach. That was you guys nailed that. And if you nailed that, I think everything else will fall into place.
Saw that week 1 against Tennessee when he said, we're going for 2. I love that. That's the tone. Remember years ago, many, many years ago, I remember, because I was doing radio in Ohio, working at the station, and we used to have the rip come off from the AP wire when Andy Reid, I'm dating myself, right? Andy Reid opens up the season with what? The onside kick in Dallas. That was the Dallas, pickle juice game.
Pickle juice game. I remember that. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I remember that one.
Yeah. So you set the tone early.
The NFC East, all 4 teams are in the playoffs right now. That's just
Yeah,
wild.
well, Washington kind of scares me too. They're playing really well.
They're not bad.
So,
not
but
bad.
listen, like I said, you just want competitive football. And it's horrible that I actually have to say that on the record. You know, it really is. It's like, well, if I ask her to marry me, I hope she at least says she'll think about it. Like, come on, man.
I want better for you. I want better for you. I want better for you. I do. You deserve better. It's been a long time. It's been,
You don't have to tell me.
It's been a long
It would have
time.
been horrible if the Phillies would have friggin' won the World Series. I mean, I was trying to will that. As much as I hate the Astros, I was almost like trying to reverse mush Malloy. Just the fact that I was willing it not to happen, because if that happened, the sports gods would have, the Eagles would have went roughshod and won the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And then I would have imploded.
Philly fans have been riding high, and we're still riding high. That was a great run by the Phillies. Nobody expected that. And the Eagles, I mean, look, one loss. We're still hungry. We want that home field advantage. We want another ring. We got that taste a few years ago. We want another one, Q. They can't call us the losers now. They can't.
I'll tell you though, I don't know. I can live with the Flyers winning the Stanley Cup. I can live with, believe it or not, I don't know if I can live with the Eagles winning the Super Bowl. I can live with even the Phillies winning the World Series. If the Sixers won a championship, I would probably get the hell out of here. You know why? Because all I would be hearing and be bombarded with is, see, this is why you trust the process. And I just would have I would have lost it, man. So it's like the lesser of two evils.
We need the Sixers to get it together just to see your reaction.
It's not going to be good.
It'd be priceless. It'd be priceless.
It's not going to be good, brother.
I need it to happen now.
I don't know about that. All right, listen, man. Appreciate you jumping on board. Great. I know we're going to do this a lot more, but great stuff. Jonathan Marshall does a great job with the NBA at John_Marshall3. He's doing multimedia journalist, anchor, all of so what do you walk me through real quick before I let you get out of here? The day in the life, man.
Day in the life. It depends. It depends. Like, on a random Tuesday, I may cover a Celtics game, or on a Monday night may cover a Patriots game. On weekends I'm anchoring, so that means college football, and Sundays is all about the Pats. So putting together the sports cast and producing and editing my video and just being ready for this space is made for TV, Q. So just getting ready.
I see you dressed the part. I listen, man. I still got my no shave November, so I'm still riding out the beard on that one. I'll trim it up. I mean, I know this is a little like a Carlito Brigante from Carlito's Way, Chino, but no, I hear you. You got to play the part, but you like it. You're enjoying it.
I'm enjoying it. Covering. I never thought I would be covering New England sports, Boston area sports, but here I am. But it's been fun though. Like being from the Philly area, I can connect with it because they're so passionate about everything, right? The Bruins are playing well now.
Yeah.
Obviously the Red Sox are huge. The Celtics are playing great, and the Pats are always going to be in the news for some reason. So it's been a good experience for sure.
But you also learned that lesson I taught you many, many moons ago, right? Whereas a job is a job. So you have to go
exactly
where the job is, right?
Exactly.
So you had Texas, you were doing this radio in Delaware with me, then Texas, now Boston. So now, but that's a good market. So you can always come back home, or you can take that and go somewhere warm.
That's having that Texas experience. I was in Memphis. Like I spent time.
Memphis, I totally dismissed that. I'm sorry, Memphis. Yeah.
Most of my adult life has been in the South, right? And so it's like, man, I was spoiled. I actually kind of want to go back to the warm weather, whether that's Florida. Like, I just need I need some warmth.
Listen, whoever gets there first, man. If it's in FLA, whoever gets there first.
Got you.
Taking the show on the road. So. All right, brother. I always appreciate you. Everyone give him a follow on Twitter at John_Marshall3. We'll do it again next week. Thank you, Jonathan.
I take it easy, Q.
All right, you got it. So great stuff as always, man. We talk a ton of NBA, and I always appreciate Jonathan coming on board for a couple moments. So he likes Atlanta, lay in the 5.5. So do I. 76ers. I'm going to go with Philly as long as Embiid's in this one and engage. Simmons out tomorrow night for the Nets with knee soreness. So I'm actually going to ride with Beal and the Wizards, get in the 5.5. And then I like Giannis and Milwaukee over the Knicks. So as we always like to say, if you guys are tuning in, if you say it, you play it. If you back it, you stack it. Another edition of BYP in the books. I'm Rich Quinones. Appreciate Jonathan Marshall keeping us on board for a couple moments as well. Great NBA stuff. Give me a follow on Twitter at RichQ. We'll drop a new episode of 27 and Q with myself and former two-time Super Bowl champ and former New York great running back Brandon Jacobs tomorrow. As always, check out that YouTube channel, 27 and Q. Appreciate the good friends over at Spooky Express for all your betting, handicapping, promos, and needs. They got a bunch of affiliates. They got a bunch of promos all ready to go with the NBA. As we talked about, a little light night. It gets a little more heavier during the week, but check them out online, spookyexpress.com. As always, we appreciate you guys keeping us locked into another edition of BYP. I'm Rich Quinones. We'll talk to you later on in the week. Lloyd Vance on the NFL and some best plays and bets for week 13 coming up tomorrow. We'll talk to you again with 27 and Q. But as always, have a good night, everyone.